The sun had only just slipped behind the red cliffs when Ethan Cole stumbled through his cabin door, the wounded Apache woman in his arms. Her breath was faint, her skin cold from blood loss, yet she held a quiet strength even in unconsciousness. Ethan laid her gently on the blanket near the fire, his heartbeat still racing from the danger he'd outrun. He had risked everything: his ranch, his quiet life, his safety, to pull her from the men chasing her. He didn't know her name, only that abandoning her had never been an option for him. As the fire crackled to life, Ethan washed the dried blood from her arm, noticing the way her breathing eased just slightly. The night settled heavy around the cabin, coyotes howling in the distance, but he barely heard them. His hands worked steadily, wrapping her wound, offering her water drop by drop. Every now and then, he glanced at her face-strong cheekbones, long black hair falling across her shoulder, eyes closed but carrying a story even in their silence. He wondered who she was, who hunted her, and why he suddenly felt responsible for keeping her alive. He sat back finally, exhausted but alert, watching the flames dance shadows across her skin. Outside, darkness thickened, but inside the cabin, warmth slowly replaced the chill. Ethan hadn't expected strangers in his life, especially not strangers whose presence could start a war with the Apache tribe. Yet something deep inside him whispered that this moment mattered in a way he couldn't explain. He felt it in the steady pull of the night, in the quiet rise and fall of her chest, in the strange peace that settled over him despite everything. Then, without warning, she stirred. Her fingers twitched, her lips parted, and slowly, carefully, her dark eyes opened. They locked onto his with a calm, steady force that shook him more than any gunshot ever had. There was no fear in her gaze, no confusion, no threat, only recognition. As if she already understood the choice he had made when he lifted her from danger, as if she knew what it had cost him. He leaned closer, unsure whether to speak, unsure whether her consciousness would fade again, but instead she pushed herself up just enough to meet his eyes fully. Her voice was soft, rough from pain, yet strong enough to cut straight through him. "Take a woman like me as your wife," she whispered, each word deliberate, ancient in meaning, weighted with tradition. Ethan froze, breath caught in his throat. He had expected gratitude, fear, or silence, but not this. She wasn't asking. She wasn't pleading. She was declaring a truth shaped by her people's customs. And though Ethan's mind wasn't ready for such a vow, his soul had already begun to answer. Ethan stepped outside into the cool desert evening, trying to steady the storm inside him. The sky stretched endlessly overhead, painted in deep purples and fading gold. He tried to breathe, but each breath felt too heavy, too full. He had saved women before, travelers, settlers, innocents caught in crossfire, but none had ever shaken him like the Apache woman now standing in his cabin. He had meant only to help her survive. He never imagined she would speak words that brushed so dangerously close to the lonely places in his heart. He heard the cabin door creak softly. She followed him out without a sound, her steps light, her presence calm despite the pain she carried. The fading sunlight kissed her face as she stood at his side, unafraid. "You protected me," she said, her voice warm and steady. "In my people's eyes, that means you belong with me now?" There was no hesitation in her tone, no doubt, only a certainty shaped by something older than either of them. Ethan turned toward her, stunned by the softness in her expression, the quiet resolve that radiated from her like heat from the earth. He opened his mouth to speak, but found no words willing to come. Every argument he'd prepared about danger, about tribes, about laws and borders crumbled under the weight of her sincerity. She wasn't asking for claim or ownership. She wasn't demanding anything out of fear. She was offering something sacred, something he did not know he had been longing for until this moment. "You don't know me," he whispered finally. She stepped a little closer, eyes searching his. "I know your actions," she replied. "A man can lie with his tongue, but not with his choices." The words struck him deeper than he expected. Ethan looked out across the land he had lived on for years, dry grass swaying, cliffs glowing faintly in twilight, the wind carrying the scent of cedar. He had spent so long believing he was meant to live alone. Grief had carved quiet spaces in him that no one had filled since his wife died years ago. But now, Beside him stood a woman who saw through him without judgment, who carried her own scars yet faced the world with courage he recognized and respected. Her presence unsettled him only because it felt right. Slowly, he reached for her hand. She did not pull away. Instead, her fingers twined gently with his, warm despite the chill settling around them. He felt something shift, a promise, unspoken but unmistakable. Not the kind forged by fear or obligation, but one born from two people carried together by fate's strange wind. "If I walk this path with you," he murmured, "it won't be halfway. It'll be all the way." Her lips curved into the faintest smile, one that softened the entire world around them. "Then we walked together," she said. The stars emerged overhead as they stood side by side, two strangers bound not by law, but by a choice made under the evening sky. Ethan knew there would be challenges, tribal customs, the men still hunting her, the uncertain future they now shared, but for the first time in years, he felt something stronger than fear, hope. And with her hand in his, he stepped into a story neither of them had expected, but both were ready to claim.